Okay, I'll do this. I'm going to do this. Let's go. But this election is now over. Congress has certified the results. I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
But Congress is certified. Now Congress is
Yeah, right.
Now Congress
I didn't say over, so let me see. Go to the paragraph before.
Hours after the deadly insurrection, Donald Trump still refused to admit the election was over. Those lies and all the ensuing damage inflicted on the country are now at the center of the new criminal case facing the ex-president of the United States, who is a candidate to be the next president of the United States. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Wednesday, August 2nd, the month of August, coming in like a lion. Let's dive right into yesterday's unprecedented events out of Washington, where former President Donald Trump, who took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the United States Constitution, has been indicted for allegedly trying to subvert that very same document. A federal grand jury convened by special counsel Jack Smith voted to charge the president for his alleged efforts to stay in power after losing the 2020 election.
The 45-page indictment lays out 4 felony charges against Trump. They are conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. Trump is scheduled to make his first court appearance in the new case tomorrow at 4 p.m. in Washington. Special counsel Smith spoke about the case after the indictment was unsealed and emphasized the seriousness of the charges.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
Joe, we're going to dig deeper into all of these charges, the potential jail time that comes with all of these charges. But as people think back to January 6, 2021, 2.5 years ago, the way they felt watching people storm into the Capitol, the way they felt not hearing from the President of the United States to stop it, the way they felt watching cops getting beaten up with American flags. Justice is patience, and here it is, a 45-page indictment that shows the bill now has come due for that day.
Yeah, the wheels of justice grind slowly, but they grind finely. Yeah, and we have, by the way, we have Jen Psaki, Michael Beschloss, Chuck Rosenberg, Ken Delaney, and George Conway, Mike Barnicle, John Meacham, Claire McCaskill, Andrew Weissman, David Franchel, Sharpton. I mean, you go down the list: Bob Woodward, Joyce Vance, Michael Schmidt, Neil Katyal, Ari Melber, John Hyam. We have so many people here today to talk about what certainly is the most important criminal case in the history
What stood out to you in
this
it?
great republic. Well, you know, it's so easy, Mika and Willie. We do this every day, and we see the lies, and we see Republicans, unfortunately, and people on the Trump right in media just lying, going along with him and lying, and it's very discouraging. Yeah. What stood out to me, though, reading this 45-page document, is that far from being a Democratic conspiracy against Donald Trump, it is a document, all 45 pages, filled with not only Republicans that supported Donald Trump and voted for Donald Trump, but people whose lives depended on him winning the election, who would have been richer, more powerful, more connected had he been elected. And these are the people, time and time again, that Jack Smith drew evidence from, got evidence from. And it is astounding, Willie. I go through this document and I see he's just throwing things against the wall, one lie after another, constantly. And time again, it's not a liberal saying, no, that's not true, Mr. President. It's not an editorial page editor for the New York Times saying that. It's not somebody in MSNBC primetime saying that. It's Republicans. If you all will be patient with me for 1 minute, this is so telling. Jack Smith writes this: these claims were false and the defendant knew they were false. In fact, the defendant was notified repeatedly that his claims were untrue, often by the people on whom he relied on for candid advice in important matters and were best positioned to know the facts, and he deliberately disregarded the truth. For instance, and then he goes through the defendant's vice president and all the times the defendant's vice president told him, Mr. President, that's wrong. It's against the law. We can't do it. Senior leaders of Donald Trump's Justice Department, the director of national intelligence, again, his principal advisor on intelligence matters, disabused the defendant of the notion that there were any election interference. The Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency called it, quote, the most secure in American history.
And then he was fired.
And he was fired the day after he put that out. All of Donald Trump's senior White House attorneys, there's a reason why he went after the co-conspirators he did. Because all of Donald Trump's senior White House attorneys that stayed with him through Charlotte, that stayed with him through racist comments about invaders, about S-hole countries, about you name it, all the fascist language that stayed with him through 2 impeachments, they were the people that stood up, his senior White House attorneys, selected by Donald Trump, to provide him candid advice, informed the defendant time and again there was no evidence of this fraud, and also told him, your president's going to end on January the 20th, 2021. Senior staffers on the defendant's 2020 campaign whose sole mission was the defendant's reelection. Think about how much more powerful they would have been if he had won. Instead of searching for jobs, what are they doing now? I mean, now they're testifying against Donald Trump, talking about the lies. And time and again, they said, what you're saying, Mr. President, just isn't true. State and federal courts, as Jack Smith said, rejected every outcome-determinative post-election lawsuit filed by the defendant, his co-conspirators, his allies, providing the defendant real-time notice that his allegations were meritless. Again, Republicans. In Arizona, the Arizona Speaker of the House, who was pushed and pressured by Donald Trump, said, if there were evidence of illegal votes or an improper count, then Arizona law provides a process to contest the election. But the law does not authorize the legislature to reverse results of an election. As a conservative Republican, I don't like the results of the presidential election. I voted for President Trump and I worked hard to reelect him. But I cannot and I will not entertain a suggestion that we violate current law to change the outcome of a certified election. And
his life was changed.
Under laws that we wrote and voted upon, Arizona voters chose it, and our system requires that, an evangelical, a Republican, lifetime Republican, a Trump supporter refused to do it. In Georgia, the senior campaign advisor told Donald Trump that his dead voters claim was untrue. And he wrote this. He said, quote, when our research campaign can't back up any of the claims made by our elite strike force legal team, you can see why we're 0-32 on our cases. Oh, obviously a hustle and a help on all fronts, but it's tough to own any of this when it's all just conspiracy shit beamed down from the mothership. Oh, close quote. Close quote. Again, a Trumper who wanted Donald Trump to win. In Georgia, the lies about the 5,000 dead people. The Georgia Secretary of State said, well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is your data is wrong. The actual number were 2. The defendants then claimed out-of-state voters had voted in Georgia. The Georgia Secretary of State's counsel said, we've gone through each of those as well, and those numbers that we got we're just saying they're not accurate. You can go through every single state. The Michigan House Speaker.
This is an amazing statement.
We diligently examined these reports of fraud to the best of our ability, said the Republican Speaker of the House in Michigan, who Donald Trump had invited to the White House to pressure him. I fought hard for President Trump. Nobody wanted him to win more than me. I think he's done an incredible job, but I love our republic too. I can't fathom risking our norms, traditions, and institutions to pass a resolution retroactively changing electors for Trump. I fear we'd lose our country forever. This truly would bring mutually assured destruction for every future election in regards to the Electoral College, and I can't stand for that. I won't. Not a New York Times editorial writer, not an MSNBC primetime host.
Not Morning Joe host.
A right-wing conservative Speaker of the House who supported Donald Trump all the way said he can't do it. Then you go to another state, and on December 27th, Trump raises with acting attorney general specific fraud claims in Wisconsin, and the acting deputy attorney general told Donald Trump the claim was false. And Willie, we can go on and on and on. Why did I spend all of that time talking about it? Because right now Democrats are being blamed for this. Democrats it's supposedly something to distract from Hunter Biden, who we've said time and again, if he did anything wrong, send him to jail. We don't care. I mean, it's up to the Justice Department. It's up to people to prosecute him. But they're claiming that this is some left-wing conspiracy. This was written. All the statements, Republicans, the January 6th testimony, Cassidy Hutchinson, all of the people who testified there, they were Republicans whose very professional lives depended on Donald Trump winning.
That was
and
the
yet
power.
there it is.